What's up, guys, and thanks for tuning in to CRÜZR Radio, episode number 49. After a long week at the NWTF convention last week, turkeys are on our mind, and who better to talk turkey with than none other than Jason Lupardus from Turkeys for Tomorrow. Let's get into it. Well, after a week long of talking turkey with everybody, it seems that turkey's on our mind for sure, and no better guy to talk turkey about than Mr. Jason Lupardus himself. How are you, man?
Man, I'm doing fantastic. How are you today, brother?
Dude, I'm doing well. The weather's kind of got me in the dumps. We got some snow coming, which is not what I want for springtime, but it is what it is.
Amen, man. I'm here in Kentucky, not far from you, and hearing like 3 to 6 inches of snow potentially coming tonight. That doesn't get me fired up, but you know what does is right after this melts off and it warms up just a little bit, these birds are going to get real active, and that's going to make me smile.
Yo, for sure. After listening to more than I can handle turkey calls all week, that's all I've been dreaming about, it seems like.
Absolutely, man. That's what I dream about year round. I mean, I'm another one of those turkey nuts that likes to chase spring, and so all I know is in about a month I'm going to be in about as far south as you can imagine going, and I get to start chasing spring a little bit early.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, them Florida birds definitely got you by the grip right now, I'm sure.
Dude, Florida, and then for some reason I think I'm going to have to get over Texas because
mm,
that's like the next spot, and so. Yeah, man. Man, I get pretty fired up about turkey season, and I'm another one of those crazy nuts that has to travel just to get a little bit more, a little bit more.
yeah, I mean, you're so consumed of turkeys that you've made it your full-time job. Why don't you talk a little bit about what you do with TFT there?
Yeah, man. So I work for Turkeys for Tomorrow. I stepped down with them about a year and a half ago. Just really came in to try to help on a research project and offer some time. And Mr. Ron Jolly, one of our founders, and some of the board members asked if I'd want to come on and maybe work. I said, I miss doing just full time turkey work. I would be willing to do that. And so kind of stepped in, just try to handle some of the partnerships and business ops and some of the board basically just said, "Hey, would you be willing to run this thing here pretty soon?" And I said, "You know what? I don't need a title. I'm just here because I care. I'm just
Yeah.
another turkey hunter who wants to do something." So yeah, I stepped in as our chief executive officer this past summer, and man, we're just cranking right now.
Yeah, for like somebody who doesn't know what TFT is, how would you explain it to them?
Man, we are a turkey hunter organization that cares about turkeys. We are exactly this month 4 years old. It started as a bunch of guys in the hunting industry that were just not seeing the wild turkey like they used to in the places they hunt each day, and so they really didn't start Turkeys for Tomorrow to be another just conservation organization. They really just wanted some change. And man, like here in the Southeast, especially, we've seen some marked wild turkey decline.
Hmm.
We see some of the Midwestern states, some of the Western states having issues. And so that's how it kind of got kicked off. And that evolved to what I call the true grassroots movement. It kind of just flourished out of their hands. And these guys, they all got together, put a few $100s together. So let's just start a nonprofit and see what happens. Because we just want to put money into turkey research. Because at that time, there just wasn't a lot of dollars going directly back into the wild turkey research. And I can proudly say, I mean, honestly, man, I've been in the turkey arena for a long time, but this little organization, we've dumped a lot of money in and really driving wild turkey efforts like it's never been done before. And I'm very proud to get to work with some of the best researchers out there. And we're just trying to save the wild turkey using science-based solutions for long-term sustainability. It's pretty simple.
Yeah. Isn't it's always been crazy to me like how the wild turkey became such an icon of outdoor enthusiasts. It still blows my mind when you think on how big of a scale the wild, like, I mean, I don't know if I could sum up into words what hunting the wild turkey means to me, and I'm sure it's the same for you.
Yeah, man. I mean, it's a passion, and I'll be honest with you. I mean, I've hunted and chased a lot of critters down, and I love it all. But there's something different about turkey hunters.
Yeah.
I mean, turkey hunters. I by far are probably the most passionate people out there that are in pursuit. And it's not necessarily to pull the trigger. For most of us, it's trying to enjoy that fellowship with others. It's experiencing those, sunrises, sunsets. It's everything evolved around that. But ultimately, we're out there to hear one more gobble
Hmm.
and to see that bird give us just one more great show. Now, whether we pull the trigger or not really doesn't matter. If I had birds gobbling and coming in strutting in front of me every day, man, I'd be pretty doggone happy.
Yep.
Um, but it's one of the most challenging critters to make it do what Mother Nature says it's not supposed to do. Most people don't realize that, we're out there trying to mimic a hen, but in Mother Nature, that gobbler just sitting back doing his thing, gobbling, and the hens actually come to him. And so we're making Mother Nature do everything opposite, backwards. And so when you can make that chess match work out in your favor, it's a pretty special moment.
Absolutely. And you described it perfectly. A chess match. That's exactly what it is to a T. Before I get too off on a strangent just talking about turkeys, because I could do that all day. What does, as far as like the day-to-day operations of TFT, like how are y'all out there physically helping the wild turkey?
Yeah, absolutely, man. It's a great question. Right now, about 70% of all of our funds that come in is going back into wild turkey research projects. And we're here to try to drive that first. If we don't understand what's going on with the birds, then we could dump a lot of money into, let's just say, another habitat project. But if it's not habitat that's causing birds to decline, then maybe we need to address something else. So number one, that's where most of our funds are going directly back in. The other big chunk is going into really the education outreach.
Hmm.
You may have heard of the Wild Turkey Science podcast. It's become wildly popular. We're very lucky that Dr. Lashley and Dr. Goolsby out of Florida and Alabama decided to step into that early on, and we are really the sole supporter. There's a lot of others that are out there helping with that, but they are providing what I call the science in a means that everyone can understand it. And no doubt, I think that's very important. Is that we as turkey hunters and wild turkey enthusiasts are so excited about the wild turkey. We want to know everything we can and to try to get ahead of the curve.
Yeah, absolutely. So, just trying to work it through my brain here. You work with other wildlife biologists across the United States and pretty much directing the best scenarios to become the most achievable population.
Absolutely. There's some things we just don't know about what's going on with the wild turkey.
Hmm.
Technically, no one actually even knows what the population is. And as Brett Collier put it on something we did last year, Brett Collier, Dr. Brett Collier, he's going to love me for saying that. He's been with LSU for a long time, directing, probably some of the biggest research projects going on in the nation. Him and Dr. Chamberlain out of Georgia, great guys. But these guys, like Collier said, he said, guys, this is a scientific wild ass guess. We got a lot of swag out there. And so not even the states, if you look at state agencies, not all of them have the same multiplier or algorithm to determine wild turkey populations. So yes, we're trying to determine what wild populations are in places, but more importantly, we're trying to determine what's causing decline. Decline concerns me. I don't want to have a silent spring, brother. It that scares me. I've been in some places where I used to hunt, and the place that I grew up hunting still does not have wild turkeys, man.
Hmm.
And so, as an avid turkey nut, I'll give you a little background, man. I grew up in rural Northwest Alabama. There ain't a whole lot around where I grew up. It's called Frog Pond, Center Star, Rogersville, Florence gets a little bit bigger. But I grew up out in the country, very rural, not much around, and I didn't see a wild turkey until I was a teenager.
Wow.
And there's two counties in Northwest Alabama, Lauderdale County and Limestone County. You can look on a map, you look at the specifics, but those two counties are still fairly devoid of birds. There were birds introduced there, but
Yeah.
they never took a hold. No one's figured it out. And growing up in a place that never had birds, and then you finally get to a place one day you get to experience it. I don't know about you, man, but it's one of those huge drivers in my soul. Like before I die, I want to make sure there are birds there again,
Yeah.
right? Um, and so there's a lot of places out there that people are experiencing or have experienced the same thing, and we're trying to determine what's going on. Something that we feel could be a huge factor. Once great habitats in place, is that maybe those predator prey dynamics need to be looked at more carefully. And we know that, when the wild turkey was really reintroduced across the nation, it was the time of a perfect storm. And I say it's a perfect storm because at that time, there's a correlating factor that was going on. Just so happened that fur prices happened to be some of the highest in the history of the nation. And trapping was a big deal at that time.
Mm-hmm.
The thing about the perfect storm, we're releasing birds all over the United States, especially in the eastern US, when we have very prolific trapping and really predator removal going on. It set up the perfect conditions where we actually saw the facts of the history is that for each hen that was being put on the ground, she was averaging 7 to 8 poults being recruited into the population. Dude, that's huge. That has not occurred since then.
Mm.
It has not occurred since then. Why not? Well, there's a lot of reasons why we think it hasn't. We achieved a baseline population, but I think we hit a huge peak in places and then it started declining. But you also look at, we have more people on the landscape, we have a fragmented landscape, and technically we have a lot more mesopredators out there than we ever did that are being introduced in places that wild turkeys have not had to deal with before. And I truly believe, because of the lack of trapping, that that is a potential factor to limit some population growth, or in some cases, it could be causing population decline.
Yeah.
And so we're trying to address that with multiple projects. One of those, we just helped with a project that actually Sitka, we appreciate Sitka and Onyx for helping us with some funding. But we radio tagged with GPS backpack units some hens down in Texas on a property that's being well managed for predators and habitat. It is technically one of the first studies ever done where it's being done on a property well managed for predator removal. Most of these other projects being done have been done on public grounds, which it's a mixed match of work. May not even be great habitat work, but it's work being done. Some on private grounds where good habitats work's being done. But this one, if I was to grade it from a 1 to 10 on predator removal and for quote unquote habitat work, it'd be rated a number 1. Okay. And it's Melon Creek Outfitters. Mr. Dan Brayman, he is a fantastic human being down in Texas, and he's doing all the sweat equity to make it happen. And so we started discussing this about a year ago, and radio tags and birds, and it's pretty cool too. We even have a radio tagged quote unquote bearded hen. And so everyone's very excited to see what these birds are going to do in this kind of area. We're going to follow them throughout the year and see if they're going to pull off successful nests and successful broods.
Yeah.
And if we're starting to see some of this, we can start putting this puzzle together and try to figure out what's really going on.
Yeah. Do you find it a lot easier, or maybe it ain't easier at all, but a lot more common to have better outcomes on private land other than public?
I tell you what, from looking at a research standpoint, you have a better opportunity for controls. Any type of research, you're going to have a control to look at
Mm-hmm.
an action of what's going on. And so when you can control whether it's turkey harvest, how many people are out, how many predators are removed, and you actively know what that is because you can keep account. All of those are things that help us from a scientific standpoint determine how do we make the best choices moving forward, and recommendations that can be taken off from a private landowner to a public landowner to even a governing state agency in order for us to really make the changes necessary to ensure that we do have turkeys for tomorrow.
Yeah. We talked
Yep.
to, I don't know if you're familiar with him, Dr. Michael Cohen from Tennessee Tech, not too long ago. And
Brad Cohen?
yeah,
Yep.
yeah, Brad Cohen.
Yep.
And we dove into the turkeys a little bit, but it was more during the deer season, so we kind of focused on that. But correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, the wild turkey essentially is just put on the earth to survive.
Yeah, man. I mean, most of these species are. And so, man has had a huge impact in bird numbers over time. And I mean, you think about turkeys being reintroduced to birds being moved way back in the day. Um, I was having a discussion with some guys in New Zealand, right, the other day about birds being introduced in New Zealand. I think Rob Keck even spelled it out by Cortez back in the early 1800s. And so these birds, man, are very iconic to us. But yeah, they're built really just to survive. And honestly, Mother Nature used to do a whole lot of things that some of us may not like maybe a lightning strike and a big fire erupts, and that might burn real damn hot. Well,
Mhm.
these days, I don't know about you, but we really don't want to see our neighbors' houses burning down. We don't want to see something like we're seeing in California happen. And so there's a lot of preventive measures that's put into place to ensure we don't have catastrophic effects.
Yeah.
So we're a part of these systems now. And yeah, these birds are built to survive. But if these systems aren't really going the way they used to, we don't have the same critters that used to be here. We don't have large predators that used to be focused on these mesopredators and had their numbers lower. We don't have wolves running around, man.
Yeah.
Last time I checked, we don't have a huge mountain lion population up our way that's eating these smaller mesopredators that they're really not focused on turkeys. They're focused on the predators that are focused on turkeys.
Yeah.
And so when you start looking at these systems, man, we as people have impacted certain parts of the system that we are comfortable with.
Hmm.
But if everything was all natural, turkey numbers would look a lot different right now.
Yeah. So would you say the biggest threat to the turkey is a human population?
I gotta be honest with you, yeah, man. I mean, we're the ones that can make or take, right? We can help make more or we can take more,
Hmm.
whether that's through hunting or indirect, impacts. Like if we look at a lot of the cities and towns, and man, look at Nashville. Look how big Nashville is compared to 10 years ago.
Yeah.
I mean, there used to be turkey habitat on the fringes, and it's gone. I mean, so concrete doesn't grow turkeys.
Yeah.
Habitat grows turkeys.
For sure.
And so as we grow as a population, man, yeah, we're pretty impactful. It could be something even serious, with what we do. So we have to be cognizant of the environment and what we're doing to try to grow birds and
Yeah.
manage them. And if it wasn't for people and regulations, I mean, we wouldn't even have turkeys today.
Yeah. What would you say like the ideal turkey habitat looks like? I know there's all kinds of habitat programs going on, like we just talked about, but like ideal, best case scenario for them to live in.
All right, so man, there's so many places across the U.S., and so I'm gonna try to make this as simple as
Yeah.
possible. But birds need good roost trees. Very simple, right?
Hmm.
A forest dynamic that produces quality mast is always fantastic. A diversity of forest is good because you want to have great conifer trees in there when it's really cold weather and they need some thermal heat coming down, or during really hot weather where you actually get some cooling impact in forested environment. That's very important. But you also want a field complex where come springtime, you have places that birds can actually go and strut and do what they want to. But most importantly, out of all these things, nesting and brood range are the two biggest limiting factors for birds. And so if I was trying to look at a sea of habitat that had massive, if 50 to 75% of the habitat was nesting and brood range, buddy, would have turkeys like cockroaches right now. Okay. And nesting and brood range is something that we have to keep managed, usually on anything from a 1 to 3 year rotation in most of the United States, causing some kind of disturbance. So in the past, Mother Nature, large herbivores, et cetera, would create that disturbance. And so now we're missing some of those components. This is where we can come in and help with that forest management, field management, things like lightly disking, prescribed burns. I mean, there's a ton of things and activities we can do to keep that 1 to 3 year early successional plants, those good weeds in place
Hmm.
that provide the structure and also the benefits of having a lot of bugs in there, that's going to be great for wild turkeys of all ages.
Yeah. So you're looking at like some saltgrass, milkweed, stuff like that kind of areas that they can hide from essentially big predators in.
Absolutely. So you need overhead structure. I mean, we know raptors are probably one of the number one predators from above, but having blocky areas, we're not talking about strips. Strips are terrible.
Mm-hmm.
Strips introduce any kind of predator to walk through. It's got a nose, got eyes, can see, hear, smell. And so bigger the blocks, the better for the turkeys. And so having that structure. So year one, like if you got, let's say we disturb the ground back in the fall, like late summer and the fall is the best disturbance timing that you can do to create a great weed community.
Mm-hmm.
And let's say we did some stuff back in the fall. So coming into the spring, we're going to have ideal brood range. It's going to be a place where there's going to be abundance of insects, a lot of young green tender shoots coming up. We tend to get very heavy flowering from a ton of species. That's very positive for the wild turkey. So they're going to be eating little flower buds, little greens, tremendous amount of insects. Oftentimes in year one, you have a lot of panicum type grasses. It almost looks like a type of like a miniature sorghum, like a brown top millet or something that will come up naturally.
Yeah.
Ton of positive seeds. Okay. You take that same area, the second year, you start having some other weeds that will come in place and create more of a structure and height. And if you think about a wild turkey, the ideal height for a wild turkey is really the height of the bird when it can pull its head up and come up in full look when you know how they periscope, right?
Mm-hmm.
When they can do that, that's really the ideal situation where they can barely get their head above that habitat. So year two, you start getting some of that structure. Also in year two, you start getting a few woody species that come in, naturally reoccurring shrub bases, and also maybe some small trees. But year three, oftentimes that's when it starts to get a little bit gnarly. Depends on where you are. Further north you go, the longer you can expand that out. The further south you go, 1 to 2 year rotations all you can do because you got long growing seasons. But in general, if we could keep disturbance in general on a 2 year basis in most places, buddy, we're gonna have turkeys.
Yeah. So like it's similar to like some upland bird, kind of their habitat.
Well, turkeys are an upland bird,
Well,
so yes, absolutely, I got you there, man. But yes, they any kind of upland activity you can do. Prescribed fires are great to keep succession setback. You can change that up with one growing season burn that I like, not in the spring. I'm a guy that doesn't like spring burns. I don't think they have many benefits for anything. But burns that are done late summer into the fall, you basically set back hardwood species, and that disturbance timing, as we know, is the only time of year that really promotes heavy native legumes.
Yeah.
Okay. They're natural, man. Why would we not want to bring some stuff back? It's not only going to be for turkey, but great for deer, bobwhite quail, you name it.
Mm-hmm. I couldn't tell you that. I don't know if I've ever seen any kind of quail in the wild in my lifetime up here.
Oh Lord, man. I need to get you out sometime. I've been blessed, man, to get to work with a lot of landowners in the past. I did a spell working for a state agency down in Georgia, DNR, working in private lands and kind of covering the southern half of the state. And talk about people that know how to do quail management. I got to be on some of the largest and really best managed properties for quail, and it's amazing. But the one thing I noticed on all those tracks that had a lot of quail, that intensity of management for quail birds was really good for turkeys. Really good.
Yeah. Do you think that last year's cicada hatch will help 2 years from now?
Brother, amen. I should have wore my cicada shirt, even though I'm in bright orange TFT today. But yeah, I'm a big proponent of these cicadas, and done a lot of research into it. And man, the history's there. Every state that has notated a cicada hatch in their area on a county basis has seen a tremendous boom in the turkey population 2 years later. And we know it's 2 years later because most of your turkey harvest is those 2 year old birds that we all love, the ones that like to gobble, and they are a little more stupid because they're just teenage boys.
Yeah. No, if it has any intel on how it'll be 2 years from now, because those things were thick, bad.
Yes, brother. This past year was good. It's interesting. I'll talk about Indiana for a minute,
Yeah.
but Indiana had multiple cicada hatches. Okay, multiple years of cicadas because there's several broods of cicadas that will hatch out over time. And what they saw, they had a tremendous boom. I think it was 3 years ago, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Okay, they had another big boom last year. So last year in Indiana, this is an interesting fact for you. Their turkey harvest, the majority of their turkeys were actually 3-year-old birds because they had such high production 3 years prior. They had great hunting 2 years later, but it carried over into year three.
Yeah.
And now they had another cicada hatch. What I would predict, if you want to put money on this right now, um, this season, next season, the next season, Indiana's going to be hot. So if you got a state you want to go to, you might want to check out Indiana because those cicada hatches are huge. It's not just because that there's a lot of food out there. Don't get me wrong; they're eating cicadas for sure. But what's more important is survival is higher because you have predator prey shifts. And so what we're seeing is we're recruiting more of those poults into the population. So instead of it being a balance, most of our states, Southeast, we're seeing a 1-to-2 ratio or less, which means for every hen, two of those poults are surviving to be adults. That means you have a population that's not going up or down. If it's a less than a 1-to-2 ratio, the population is declining.
Mm-hmm.
In Indiana, we're looking at a 1-to-3 to 1-to-3.5, which means we get in a decline right now. So now we're bolstering the population. And so just a betting man here, but I'd bet on this one pretty hard. Turkey hunting up there is going to be pretty good for a bit.
Well, I'm glad you said that. Considering we're going.
Yep.
Overall, I mean, at the rate we're going, what do you think like the next 10 to 15 years looks like for the turkeys?
Man, that's a tough one, brother. I hope it's good. I hope folks like us and other turkey-focused organizations will be driving efforts to ensure that our populations do not continue to decline. There's been a lot of talk about, hey, it's cycles, right? Oh, these are just cycles. It's up and
Yeah.
down, or hey, we hit a peak and now it's going to level off somewhere lower. Um, Man, in my background, I'm a biologist, man. I'm a wildlife biologist. I got my credentials at UT. I
Okay.
bleed a lot of orange,
Yeah.
but what I see is that we have other factors that we just haven't put into place. And when we look back at when all these birds were introduced, we may have artificially put bird numbers a lot higher than what we could have ever dreamed about because it was the perfect storm, like I talked about earlier.
Yeah.
So if we remove that perfect storm and we started reintroducing birds today, and I'll give you an example, like in East Texas. East Texas is still struggling having a turkey population. I don't know if you know that, but they've been reintroducing birds for years and they are having a hard time keeping birds there. No one knows why.
Yeah.
I was actually texting the state agency coordinator down there today, I have someone that's willing to gift birds to Texas to try to help. And so, which is a great thing, right? But we're still struggling in places. And I think we have not considered all these other factors. And we may even have something else out there that's unknown to us. Maybe there is a disease factor we haven't figured out. Right now, there's not one that we can put our finger on, but
Mm-hmm.
there could be something else out there that is impacting birds in a way we haven't thought about before. But I'll tell you this, man, with deer hunters out there, and nothing against deer hunters, 'cause I'm one of them. But we have feeders just about everywhere you go now, whether it's a feeder just to have pictures of deer or whatever. But these feeders also pull a ton of predators around there.
Mm-hmm.
And what we're seeing is very high mortality and very low nesting success from some limited studies right now around feeders. And if you go to just about any private land track out there, there's a corn feeder on the property.
Yeah.
And I think there could be some other issues there that we're just not having addressed.
Yeah.
And we need to address it.
Well, personally, it seems to me like we need to start trapping for tomorrow.
Brother, yes, amen, hallelujah. I tell you, we're pushing that really hard. We have some fantastic partnerships that's evolved with the National Trappers Association, the National Trappers Foundation, and also real recently, man, Bill Duke is a fantastic human being out of Mississippi with Duke Traps, and he stepped in and been helping us too. And I don't see this movement stopping anytime soon. We are really focused very heavily on this perspective. I kind of grew up in the trapping arena, and I've trapped a lot of critters, man, including, from big critters called black bears to elk, to the smallest mice, you name it. And I really feel that this is going to be something that we can drive to help.
Hmm.
And we're putting a lot of effort into this with multiple researchers right now to try to determine, hey, is this a factor? And if it is, let's come up with the correct solutions where we can help change and evolve policies in states so that we can ensure that we have turkeys for tomorrow.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Yeah. Trapping seems to definitely becoming a dying thing anymore. And I'm sure it's because the fur market's down and everything like that. But even us here at CRÜZR, we try to do, just as much as we can of it. And on top of that, we're actually sometime in the near future wanting to put together some kind of short film, just to teach people how to trap or try to at least get the word out there like, hey, we need to do more of this. Because not only you have talked about it, we talked about it with Dr. Bradley Cohen, our local TWRA. Like, there isn't many people left to do it.
Absolutely, brother. It's very important. Years ago when I was in school and doing a lot of trapping in college, and even trying to make a living on it on the side, and even here in Kentucky, man, I did it for a bit, but was even a nuisance control operator, right?
Yeah.
We're permitted in the state to trap about anything you can, because people need help. But that education and passing that tradition on, I'm scared there could be a gap. I think there's several people in the trapping arena that have done a lot of work to try to keep that rolling, and
Mm-hmm.
I commend them big time. It's a big deal. I was fortunate enough to do something called a trappers college, where I was basically on a trap line for 2 weeks with some of the biggest experts in the country, showing us all these tips and tricks on how to trap just about anything. And it was phenomenal. I come away from there going, man, I'm ready to trap badgers now, and I can
Yeah.
do this. And just it was really cool. But we are trying to do the same thing, man. And I feel like if all of us that are in the conservation arena, in the industry arena, like you guys, can work together, we can get more done.
Yeah.
And you'll see us continue to put out more and more information on how to trap, what to do, tips, you name it, and try to stand this up in a way that's never been done before.
Yeah.
Kind of like being at the tip of the spear.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, personally, I feel like if everybody, I think, I don't know how you promote this, but there needs to be some kind of incentive within local game wardens. Like, hey, if you trap this and this year, we'll do 50% off your next. I don't know logistically what that would look like, but that's kind of what I talked about with the TWRA of the better way we could promote it for people that don't even care about it. How can we get them into it? I know we got some classes and stuff around that TWRA puts on, but like, how do we get kids interested in it? And especially with the power of social media, there ought to be tons of stuff we could do.
Absolutely, man. I think this is how we make change. And you're hitting on a lot of things that I've even spoken with folks in positions in state agencies that can help. And so, what I see in the future, there's been a couple of states that's talked about and actually even running like bounty programs, right?
Yeah.
I think a bounty program is a good educational tool to encourage people to take those steps. It's an incentive tool.
Yeah.
But I would rather see something that would be developed almost like a farm bill program, just like the Natural Resource Conservation Service does with habitat work. Why do we not have something focused on better managing species?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And this is predator management. Why could we not do that? If people are already doing habitat work, why can we not take the next steps to try to get those numbers bolstered up. Because once you get that predator prey dynamics correct, then what you see is an And if we could just create what we're calling locally, what we're trying to do is create these private landowner cooperatives because we feel like we could create incubators for success. Okay. Which basically means that we get a few landowners together, we could get some programs developed where there's some kind of incentive. Maybe it's to help get a trapper out there with them. Maybe it's a cost break on getting the equipment they need, get them outfitted with traps, whatever that may. Maybe it's the technical knowledge to get someone out there where we do a field day with a dozen landowners in the area that's got enough property where they can be very impactful for turkeys
Yeah.
and to try to bring those predator numbers down. If trapping just on a 2-week period prior to nest initiation, all of a sudden we can start creating these incubators where we start creating a lot of turkeys at a local level. And if we create a lot of turkeys in one place, because turkeys don't cover just one piece of property, man, they got a relatively large home range. I mean, we're talking anywhere from 2 to 4 square miles on average.
Wow.
And no turkey does a perfect circle on their home range.
Yeah.
Theoretically, yes, but that might be linear depending on habitat. It may make a weird angle or something. So technically, we may have this one flock that's on your property, but it may be on 10 or 12 other properties within its home range. And if we start thinking about it like that, we have to start working together locally.
Mm-hmm.
And in the Southeast, especially the South or the East in general, with what over 83% of properties being privately owned, if we're not doing something on private lands, we are missing the boat. So if we could have some programs develop where we can incentivize, educate, and then initiate action,
Mm-hmm.
these private landowner cooperatives work really well.
Yeah, no, that sounds like a great idea for just the average hunter. Maybe somebody that only has a couple acres, or not a couple, we'll say 30 acres that he hunts religiously every year, or maybe a couple small parcels. What would you say the first step of action would be in order to help his turkey population?
I mean, every property, I mean, the first thing I always do is I ask people, how many birds are you harvesting? How many people are hunting here? Just to have an idea. How many turkeys do you see? Um, and the first step is like, well, hey, I try to identify limiting factors on habitat first. That's the
Mm-hmm.
baseline. That's your foundation. If they can address that, it's going to help. And the next step would be, hey, let's look at what kind of action you can take with trapping, predator removal.
Yeah.
Number three, which is right there in the mix of all that. If you got a small track and you can, I mean, and you're effectively potentially over harvesting birds, and I've seen this happen. I've been one of those guys as a part of that, and then I admit to it. I've been to where you can actually over harvest a cohort of birds, and because turkeys, man, they evolve through imprinting, and if you don't have another male bird, for example, to bring other male birds to a roost site like on a small track, you could potentially lose those birds. And so all these are factors you have to consider. But that's how I like to dissect it. First, we'll take a look at habitat. Second, boom, predators. And number three, close, you know, um, relative there is we have to look at harvest. And so when we look at those three, we can really start determining what we can do. And if we start scaling this out and go, hey, have you talked to your neighbors about any of this? Do you know who's hunting around you? Maybe we ought to get together. And then I'm encouraging them to connect with others, because if you don't, and you're really trying to manage a bird that, man, they 2 to 4 square miles, that's basically anywhere from about 1,300 acres to 2,600 acres.
Yeah.
That's a lot of ground, man, a bird's going to be on. So we got to think at these birds to scale. Turkeys are actually harder to manage than white-tailed deer because they cover so much more ground.
Mm. That's insane. Would you say like current as far as bag limit regulations are pretty well close, or do you think maybe tone them down a little bit?
Tell you what, man. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm gonna have some people hate me to say this, and believe me, I love the turkey hunt. I mean, if there's two birds I can harvest, like in my state,
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to chase and try to kill two birds because I love to turkey hunt.
Yeah.
But I am also of the mindset where if I had to give up a bird in order to get the population right,
Mm-hmm.
I would do whatever it took so that I knew that my kids and grandkids and people beyond me would have that opportunity. I'm thinking about this beyond who I am. Don't get me wrong. If I didn't have anything to do but turkey hunt year round,
Mm-hmm.
I'd be one of those guys. I'd do it. But I also know that we have to do something. And so I think in some of the states that's had multiple bird harvests for a long time, what we've seen is those states tend to have more turkey issues with decline than other states. That's just a fact.
Yeah.
And so the states that have traditionally had a low bird harvest, as far as regulations go, a single bird harvest, maybe two bird harvest, those states have not had as many issues. That's just a fact.
Yeah.
And so you can start looking at some of that and go, okay, well, how does that play into the equation? The other part of this equation is, turkey hunters by far, if we look at the number of turkey hunters, the folks in the Southeast tend to be more avid, diehard turkey hunters than anywhere else. That's just looking at hunter numbers. Yeah, we have turkey hunters everywhere, but in general, and so I think that turkey hunters, even though some states we can show what the average harvest is, maybe it might be a bird or so in a state, or the average is to almost a bird. But one thing we do know differently about turkey hunters, they will continue to turkey hunt or go with someone else. And so they're still being impactful on the resource.
Yeah.
And through research, birds that are bumped, sometimes only once, usually twice, they sometimes will leave their home range. Do you know what that means? I use this analogy a lot. So, brother, it's like me taking you over to Iran and dropping you off in a helicopter going, hey, you just left your home range. And I just dropped you in the middle of Iran. Okay. Good luck.
Yeah.
What are you going to do? Now, you're pretty crafty, dude. You're in outdoors. You're probably going to be looking for some folks. But the thing is, you're going to have some guys out there wanting to snipe you off. And your chance of survival is not going to be very good.
Yeah.
And that's what we have seen with radio tag birds is once they get bumped out of their home range, they're in a whole new environment trying to figure out what to do. Now, they're pretty doggone savvy, don't get me wrong, but we see higher mortality when birds are bumped. So what does that mean? Let's say we're in a 3-bird state for harvest. Me as a turkey hunter, I've killed my first bird and I'm going to go back and push and push and push, and I might push some birds. Don't think much about it. Bump them off the roost, bump them one more time. They may completely leave their home range. Think about that. 2 to 4 square mile area, they leave it. They leave it. Some of Dr. Chamberlain's work that he did down in Southwest Georgia on Silver Lake Wildlife Management Area, you know where those birds left? They flew out to an island. To an island. Hung out during the whole turkey season. Sometime after turkey season, they started coming back to the mainland. Pretty crazy, huh?
That's wild.
So yeah, managing birds is pretty challenging. But if I could wave my magic wand for a day, if we're trying to address harvest to try to help some of the states that are struggling, a 1-bird harvest might be a temporary solution as we fix some of the other problems.
Yeah. And on those tag birds, like you were just talking, is that just being bumped in general, or is that human?
Human usually.
Okay.
But it could be predator related. So, like for instance, like a hen bumped off a nest.
Yeah.
What we know is through a ton of GPS studies. One, usually by the second time, let's say it's a coyote, let's say it's a bobcat, let's say it's a skunk, whatever it is. Sometimes after they've been bumped the second time, they abandon the nest.
Yeah.
Nest is gone. Gobblers, same way. If gobblers bumped by humans, by some kind of predator, they feel like it's bad news, totally gone. What's pretty cool is, and Mike can talk about this 1,000 times better than I can, but he even had some studies with humans, right, on some public ground, I think even Louisiana, that had a GPS tag on them, monitoring them and gobblers in the area. You can watch them move around together, and sometimes gobbler dies. Sometimes it gets bumped. Usually the second time it totally left, like gone. And so it's mind blowing. You start seeing this and you're like, whoa, okay, we're pretty doggone impactful on birds, and you can see like around like the typical walk-in spots, etc.
Yeah.
There aren't any turkeys there. They done got pushed out, and they're in the far places. So when you start looking at a map, you start seeing birds kind of hanging out where there's no where they're not really getting pushed by people from road access.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, if they get found in there and get bumped, they gone. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's a lot of this research that's been done over the last decade is really starting to open the eyes of everyone on how do we best manage turkeys.
Yeah, for sure. And without, people like y'all and some other conservation groups, there ain't no telling what it would look like.
Agreed, man. We just want to have more turkeys, and I've had multiple people ask me this, like, "Well, hey, man, why do you want to grow more turkeys?" I want to make them so I can take them. I mean, I ain't gonna
Yeah.
lie to you. I love turkeys. I love eating turkeys. I love hearing turkeys. It's my passion, man, and I love the spring. If I could prolong the spring by another month or two, I would do it in a heartbeat. Um, but I'd like to have more birds, man, and just so people can experience these things that you and I and others out there
Mm-hmm.
get to experience, man. It's an emotional connection, man. You know this. Like
Oh, yeah.
I'll tell you a quick story. I was out with a couple guys that are working with us at one of our local flocks. We have some local flocks. We don't call them groups or chapters or whatever. We call our folks local flocks. Okay. And they're like, man, I'd like to come up and hunt Kentucky with you. So come on up. Well, a few years ago, man, I come back from elk hunting, and I had overdid it a little bit, and I blew out and ruptured my Achilles.
Mm.
Okay, worst 6 months, 9 months of my life having to sit, not knowing if I'd ever even get to walk the way I can walk again or hunt. Um, it was tough, man. And so last year, so year before last, I went with a buddy of mine. That was my first year back out. I basically had to scratch out my turkey season. Hunted with a buddy of mine on 2 days and helped call in a bird for him. I never even really hunted because I was in pretty bad shape, man, trying to recover. And had one bird come in Kentucky, got to watch it do its thing. So last season, um, man, I was out and actually on some public ground I like to hunt. Took these guys out on and let them hunt, and had one of those miraculous moments um, where a bird does what's not supposed to, but it flew across a river. Never had that happen.
Yeah.
Never have it. Hey, it never happened again. I'm not a good turkey caller or anything, but I think God put that bird in front of me that morning.
Yeah.
And this bird crossed the river, did its thing. It drummed around for 25 minutes, put on a heck of a show, and got to pull the trigger on it. But man, it was so emotional for me, man, not knowing that if I'd ever get to hunt Kentucky again like I used to. Man, I went over that bird, man, and man, I bet I cried for like 30 minutes. It was it's pretty emotional for me, man. To experience these things and knowing that I may not get to experience it again.
Yeah.
And man, it's pretty life changing again, man. But that's what those birds do to us. And
Okay.
yeah, I come out of that woods and told those boys I got lucky, and they're like, "You're kidding, man." I'm like, no, Mother Nature was good to me this morning, and it was a heck of a hunt, man. But I'll forever remember that bird. I mean, forever. So,
Yeah, there's
yep.
a very popular video going around on social media of Michael Waddell explaining what turkey hunting means to him. And I feel like it just hits home. I could sit in a deer stand, I can kill 100 deer a year, but if I kill one turkey, my year's made.
Yep.
It just ain't the same, and it's hard to describe it to non-hunters, especially, or people that have never killed turkeys, just exactly how it is.
Absolutely, man. I mean, it's the challenge. It's a driver, and birds are, as much as I think they're stupid at times, it's a love-hate relationship, and man, it's an emotional connection. And when you experience that bird gobbling up close, and you can hear that drumming noise that rattles your soul,
Yeah.
and it's pretty special. You make a one-on-one connection, and it's something that you got to be thankful for too. I mean, there's excitement to it, and it's an emotional roller coaster, man. I mean, you're excited, and then you have this kind of remorse that it's ended,
Mhm.
and You're really thankful, and it's a spiritual moment for a lot of people, man, and it is for me.
Yeah.
I'm thankful for every bird and every morning I get to do it, or afternoon, and man, I just man, I love it. But
Yeah.
it's been a part of Mother Nature, man. God gifted us some things that, man, we're lucky to have, and we're lucky to be in a country we have the freedom to pursue and do these things. And man, it's just it's a part of our culture, it's part of our history, it's what made our nation, man, our
Yeah.
abundance of resources. And I feel very blessed to get to be one of the people that's trying to help manage those resources at a very high level.
Yeah.
And whatever we can do to get what I call an army of folks out there that care, want to give back and help, man, that's what it's all about, brother. That's what it's
Yeah.
all about.
Well, speaking on that, where can people go to find out more information or how they can get involved with TFT?
Absolutely, man. Turkeysfortomorrow.org. You can find us on our webpage there. We're on all the social media platforms. We're on, of course, Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, LinkedIn, and X. And so even throw a few things on Threads. So you can find us just about everywhere. We have a great YouTube page with a lot of instructionals and some how-tos we're developing. And come see us, man. We have a lot of events coming up. We have conservation dinners popping up. We have a couple of this week down in Alabama, one in Huntsville and one in Enterprise, which is great. And right around the corner, I don't know the day off the top of my head, but we do have one near Jackson, Tennessee, our Two Rivers flock. Great bunch of guys over there, and anticipate more to come from them.
Yeah, absolutely. And I can't end this episode without giving Mr. Scott Cronin a shout out for getting us in contact. As bad as I hate to, I'm gonna give him a little shout.
Yeah, man. I'll give Scott a shout out as well. He's one of my brothers from another mother, no doubt, just up the road from me here in Kentucky. And man, talk about a fantastic human being. I'm gonna give you some love,
Yeah.
Scott. But yeah, he's a passionate dude, man. He's a teacher in ag, and man, what he does to give back to kiddos is through the roof. But what he also does, just as a human being, to try to help us do more work in conservation it's mind-blowing, man. Like this guy, I might get a text at 11 o'clock at night like, "Hey Luke, I got an idea." I'm like,
Yeah.
"Okay, awesome." But that's him, man. He's always thinking about others. And
Yeah.
I wish I could replicate a lot of little Scots. I don't want him to look like him. I ain't saying he's the best looking dude. But yeah, I would I'd love to have more Scots in our lives, man, because man, we could really get some things done.
Absolutely. He sure has been a blessing to me, and I'm glad he got us in connection, and
Absolutely.
really appreciate what y'all are doing for the outdoors as well. And
Well, I appreciate you having us on, man, and just helping us tell the story, because this story is ongoing, and it's going on every day. We got more to do. This
Yeah.
is a job that never ends.
Absolutely. If there's anything we could ever do here at CRÜZR, man, just don't hesitate to give us a shout, or we'll help you any way we can. And if you got any projects you need help on or whatever, man, we're all ears for it, especially if, saving the habitat and, the hunt. But we are here, and I sure do appreciate you coming on today, Jason, and look forward to getting together with you soon.
Absolutely, brother. Well, hope to see you in Turkeywood soon. We need to go chase some birds together one day.
Sounds good, man. You just let me know when.
Thanks, brother.
See you, man.
See ya.